Welcome everyone to a new episode of Book Depths and Insights. Today we're going to read Nervous Conditions by Tsitsi Dangarembga, a powerful and thought-provoking book that has gotten a lot of praise in African literature. This important book, which is often thought of as a coming-of-age story set in colonial and post-colonial Zimbabwe, came out for the first time in 1988. Come with us as we look into the different parts of this interesting story. We won't be doing a traditional chapter-by-chapter breakdown, because we'll only be looking at excerpts and introductions, but we can still break down the key ideas that these parts of the book give us about nervous conditions. The first few pages of this edition are full of nice things said about Dangarembga's work. A great writer like Chinua Achebe says that Dangarembga has a wonderful sense of relationships, a wonderful sense of people, a wonderful sense of place, and that he writes about oppression of women in particular, in a way that feels as natural as the grass grows. This sets the stage for a story that is deeply rooted in the character's real-life experiences and very aware of the social forces at work. Patina Gapa talks about how important the novel was, saying that Tsitsi Dangarembga opened up the idea that a black woman from Zimbabwe could write a book, which made her an important forerunner for a generation of Zimbabwean women. More Praise says that the book looks at the ironic psychological demands of global capitalism on a broken nation and praises Dangarembga's chromatic, rich, and impressively precise sentences. We also learn that Dangarembga does a great job of showing the main character, Tambu, in her abject and vulnerable but persistent struggle, making comparisons to the famous writer Jean Rhys. The Conversation, UK, makes a very smart point when it says that the book focuses on burning issues concerning the freedom of women in Zimbabwe's patriarchal socio-economic and political milieu. Collectively, these early praises show that the novel is about gender, social structures, and one person's fight for freedom in a certain historical and cultural setting. In Professor Kwame Anthony Appiah's introduction, the first sentence of "The book is very powerful. I was not sorry when my brother died." Appiah immediately points out how shocking these words are, especially coming from a woman narrator. This makes me think about how society expects family members to feel. The main character, Tambu, whose full name is Tambudzai, quickly makes it clear that she wasn't sad because she didn't feel anything, but because of what happened before her brother died, which she has to talk about. Appiah tells us about Tambu's family and says that her uncle is the headmaster of a mission school in Umtali, which is where her brother goes to school. This immediately draws attention to the fact that different family members don't have the same educational opportunities. This is a major theme of the book, as we learned in our last conversation. Mainini, Tambu's mother, says that the bad changes she sees are caused by the Englishness that people get from going to Western school. This shows how traditional and colonial values can clash and lead to cultural alienation. For example, Tambu later gets into a mostly white convent school, despite her mother's worries. This puts her even more at the center of these cultural forces. Then Appiah talks about a common criticism of modern African novels that says they are really written for Western readers. He makes a strong case that Dangarembga's book doesn't follow this by pointing to the untranslated Shona words and cultural references. Instead, the book assumes that Tambu and her silent and invisible heater both have a deep understanding of the unique struggles post-colonial Western-educated women and their many different female relatives face in Zimbabwe, struggles that are based on gender, race, class, and economic status. But Appiah also wisely points out that even though the situation is unique, the problems of racial and gender inequality are problems that affect everyone. In the end, Appiah stresses how confident Dangarembga is in her story's ability to connect with a wide range of readers without changing Tambu's unique voice. He beautifully compares a novel to a message in a bottle cast into the great ocean of literature, which means that the power of the imagination can make a fully realized story work across cultural lines. Finally, he says that the fully realized world of nervous conditions is what has made Tambu famous around the world. Finally, that strong first sentence at the beginning of the book puts us right into Tambu's shoes. and gives us a hint that the story will be based on her own experiences and motivations. She tells us that her story isn't just about death, but also about my escape and Lucia's, my mother's and Maguru's capture, and Nyasha's flight. This early statement tells us about the main conflicts and character arcs that we can expect to see. In 1968, Tambu was 13 years old, and these events happened because her brother was going to school at the mission where her uncle was the headmaster. The details of her daily life, like the walk to the river to do her laundry, are vividly shown in contrast to how her brother felt about the same things. In this first look into Tambu's life, we get a sense of the social and personal background against which her escape will be sought. Looking at nervous conditions as a whole, it seems to be a book that is very interested in how gender, colonialism, and the search for self-definition are all connected. As hinted at, Tambu's journey will likely involve figuring out how to deal with the restrictions that come with living in a patriarchal society, and the life-changing, but possibly isolating effects of Western education. As shown by the different stories of Tambu, her mother Maguru, and the rebellious Nyasha, the book promises a deep look into cultural identity, the difficulties of family relationships when society puts pressure on them, and the various ways women in Zimbabwe deal with oppression and the need for control. From the beginning, it looks like Tambu's personal story and reflections set the pace. As mentioned in the praise section, the writing style is full of precise language and lots of details, which makes the reading experience vivid and real. Based on these excerpts, here are some things that might be good about Nervous Conditions, a compelling and real main character. From the very first sentence, Tambu's voice is interesting and makes me want to hear more about her life. Deep and sensitive, exploration of complicated themes. The book seems to go deep and sensitively into heavy topics like gender oppression, colonial influence, and the struggle for identity. A vivid picture of life and culture in Zimbabwe. The fact that Shona words and cultural details are used without being explained further suggests that the setting is real and immersive. Important addition to the literature of African women. The novel is an important piece of history because it was written by a Zimbabwean woman and was one of the first books of its kind. As for possible weaknesses, these excerpts don't give us enough information to say for sure what they are. One could, however, guess that if a reader doesn't know much about Zimbabwe's history and culture, they might find some of the unspoken references hard at first. But Appia says the novel has everything that is needed. While the focus on internal experience is a strength, readers who want a more plot-driven story might find the pace slower. Who might like this book? Nervous Conditions is likely to appeal to people who like African literature, feminist stories, post-colonial studies, and stories about coming of age that have a strong cultural background. This book has a lot to offer readers who like books with strong characters that deal with tough social issues. Thanks for coming along with us as we start to look into Tsitsi Dangarembga's Nervous Conditions. We really want you to find the whole book and get lost in Tambu's amazing story. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll continue to explore the depths of literature.